掌声有请 Let's welcome Dr. Jordan Macknick to share the first keynote speech. 掌声欢迎。
Well, thank you very much, and good morning, everybody. It's an honor to be here. Thank you for inviting me. Thank you for braving through the typhoon to come here. This was my first ever typhoon. It was a very exciting day for me yesterday. And as Tony had mentioned, we had a really great field trip, and we saw a lot of exciting things on the western side of the country in Taiwan that I think were really fascinating and really interesting overall that I wanted to talk about in my remarks today. A little bit about me. So I am from the National Renewable Energy Laboratory, which is part of the U.S. Department of Energy. Because I'm from the U.S. Department of Energy, we also do interact a lot with Department of Agriculture in the United States, but largely we operate separate but in parallel paths. A little bit about the laboratory. Our energy laboratory works not only on energy technologies, but also on energy systems, on vehicles, on hydrogen, on grid modernization. We are operating under the entire green economy or green energy field and looking at how these different parts work together. Our laboratory has over 3,000 researchers that work on it. On all these different types of topics, all the way from fundamental science and technologies, all the way to commercialization and deployment. We have over 1,000 active partnerships with companies, with universities, with other governments worldwide. Some of our motivation for talking about agriculture and agrivoltaics are looking at our energy goals throughout in the United States. Our energy goals by the year 2050 call for rapid deployment of solar energy technologies that would take up approximately 4 million hectares of land, which we know is larger than the entire country of Taiwan. That being said, this 4 million hectares really only represents about 1% of all of our agricultural land in the United States. But it's not just because it takes 1% of land does not mean that it's easy to build on agricultural land. As we mentioned, we will be seeing a rapid deployment of solar energy. Much of this will go on agricultural land, and this has led to a lot of community pushback and cancellation of projects due to community opposition to building solar projects on agricultural land. It's a major challenge in the United States. One solution that we found to address this challenge is agrivoltaics, which agrivoltaics gives us an opportunity to economically benefit our farmers. It provides land available for solar development, and it also helps address this land use conflict that we're seeing between the energy sector and our agricultural sector. And one thing that we have noticed as well is we also have data to show that agrivoltaics serves as an improvement over traditional utility scale solar projects in terms of community approval and community acceptance. So we're seeing a much higher community level acceptance for agrivoltaics projects compared to traditional utility scale solar projects. And when we talk about agrivoltaics in the United States, we talk about a large number of different topics. This includes solar greenhouses. It also includes large-scale commodity farming, whether it's wheat, corn, soy, soybeans. It also includes large stock grazing like cattle. It can also include smaller-scale specialty crops and vegetable and fruit crops, as well as smaller-scale grazing operations with sheep, as well as integrated with pollinator habitat and ecosystem services. So all of these elements can be a form of agrivoltaics in the United States. I lead what is called the INSPIRE project. So this is the Department of Energy's flagship research project on agrivoltaics. We have been operating since 2015. A key focus of our research is that we have developed and deployed agrivoltaic demonstration sites all across the country. So we currently have 24 operating research and development facilities that are located in different parts of the country, growing different types of crops with different types of configurations to learn more about what are the trade-offs and to perform research to really best understand what the impact of solar development on soil quality, on crop production, and on farmer economics can be. This is a key feature of our Inspire project. Because agrivoltaics inherently involves combining the energy sector with the agriculture sector with economic considerations, you need to have multidisciplinary teams that understand both energy sector, finance, economics, social science, soil science, plant science, animal science, all sort of working together. The team that I show here, I love my team. They're great. We really have a great background and a great set of capabilities and skill sets that allow us to address the very complex nature of agrivoltaics through some directed research. In addition to having a multidisciplinary team, it's really important that the research that is conducted stays relevant to policy, relevant to the current status of the solar industry as well as the agricultural industry. And so our Inspire research project does have an advisory group that contains members from the solar industry, from the agricultural sector, from universities, from government agencies, as well as from the broader general public. And again, we meet with them regularly and they review our research to ensure all the research we're doing is not outdated or obsolete, but is really keeping pace with the state of agriculture, the state of agricultural industry and practices, as well as the state of the solar industry practices. So now we'll talk a little bit about the state of agrivoltaics deployment in the United States and some of the underlying factors affecting and contributing to the type of deployment that we've seen thus far. So in the maps that I'll show, the data, we are including grazing projects. Again, it could be sheep or cattle. We are also including crop production sites, so vegetables, fruits. We're including pollinator habitat and ecosystem services, as well as greenhouse systems. So here is an overview map of the United States showing where we have deployed agrivoltaic systems. So you'll see there's over 500 agrivoltaic sites that have been built in the United States thus far, representing over 10 gigawatts of capacity and over 25,000 hectares of land. Most of these projects involve some form of ecosystem services or pollinator habitat. But the largest number of gigawatts, the largest capacity, is for grazing projects. Usually our crop production projects are a little bit smaller. But you will see we have agrivoltaic projects located all across the country, including in Alaska, where it's very, very cold, very far up north, but also in other places like Hawaii and Puerto Rico, which have climates that are more similar to those that to the climate that you have in Taiwan. What we are seeing is that nearly all the projects are about the same size in terms of their density. And so in the United States, we usually see about every megawatt requires about 2 hectares of land. And that's consistent across all these different types of projects. But one thing we are seeing, as I mentioned earlier, most of our crop production sites are going to be 1 megawatt or less, and so that's 2 hectares or less for our crop production sites, with a smaller number of crop production sites being 2 hectares to 10 hectares in size. But for the United States, we've noticed those seem to be the ideal sizes for crop production, and that could be, again, vegetable, fruit, other specialty crops of that size. When we have larger projects that are over 10 megawatts and over 20 hectares, then we start seeing those projects are more focused on grazing with sheep or cattle or chickens or other animals or providing ecosystem services. Here we just show a little bit of the geographic diversity associated with where different projects are built in the United States, as well as how big they are. In many states where we have lots of rangeland, grazing land, and lots of animals, we see those very, very large projects, whereas other parts of the Midwest or the Northeast, where you have smaller farms, is where we might see many other crop production sites. So I wanted to talk a little bit about some of the structure and the legal framework of the United States, which has helped inform the types of deployment that we see and the types of policy that we do have in the United States. In the United States, there are 3 levels of government that can affect agrivoltaics deployment and really solar deployment overall. That's the federal level, the state level, and we have 50 states, and then the county level, we have about 3,000 counties in the United States. So at the federal level, what we're seeing so far is at the federal level, primarily the role has been to support research funding and research and demonstration projects. So similar to my map that I showed earlier of our Inspire project, the U.S. Department of our Ministry of Agriculture, as well as our Ministry of Energy, have supported research and demonstration sites across the country, as well as the federal government can also have a role in overall financial incentives to support solar development. But much more power and much more control over agrivoltaics deployment happens at that state level, so within one of the 50 states. And so at the state level, we have more specific definitions of agrivoltaics and solar. We have more specific financial incentives that are custom tailored to the individual state needs. As the managing director noted, each country will have a different, has a different agricultural situation and needs to tailor and customize its policies towards that. It's very much the same in the United States, where each state customizes and tailors its individual policies to meet its local agricultural needs. But even at the state level, that's not as far as we go. Really, almost most of the power for determining whether or not a project will get approved or not happens at that county level. Again, as I mentioned, there's over 3,000 counties in the United States. This also means that there are approximately 3,000 different definitions of agrivoltaics and 3,000 different processes you might need to go through to get an approval to build an agrivoltaics project. But again, this is designed intentionally to ensure that any agrivoltaics project that is built really is meeting local agricultural needs and the local needs of that community. So as an example, I wanted to give a couple examples of federal, state, and local approaches. On the federal level, with the U.S. Department of Energy, there are a series of different projects and research and demonstration sites that have been constructed by the Department of Energy. As I mentioned, my project, the Inspire project, has 24 research facilities that we've developed across the country. All these other projects have 1 to 3 development projects as well. So the United States has between 40 and 50 research and development projects located all across the country that are supported by both the U.S. Department of Energy as well as by our Ministry of Agriculture. And again, that's the primary way in which our federal government has addressed agrivoltaics thus far. At the state level, we're seeing a little bit more diversity in terms of the types of policies that different states have created and the types of regulations that these different states have developed to enable or restrict solar development as well as agrivoltaics development in general. One state in particular, Massachusetts, has a feed-in tariff program that does support agrivoltaics development, and that is oftentimes seen as the model. But many other states, I think, disagree or find other ways in which they want to support agrivoltaics thus far. But again, this is what happens on that state level. Now, beyond the state level, again, I mentioned the 3,000 counties. We did we've done some studies looking at individual states, and what you see, each state might have 50 or 60 counties. And what you can see from this multicolored map is that each of those counties approaches agrivoltaics or approaches utility-scale solar projects in a little bit different manner. And so this has, again, makes things more complex for solar developers to build, but it also provides more of a guarantee that the agrivoltaics projects built in that county will be aligned with local needs. From all these projects that we've built, from all of the research that we've done so far, we have a series of lessons learned, and this is both from successful agrivoltaics projects as well as from less than successful agrivoltaics projects all across the country. And so this is summarized in our research project called the 5 C's of agrivoltaic success. These are the core elements that determine whether a project can be long-term successful or not. The first C that we have is the climate and your conditions. So this is your sunlight, your water, your soil conditions will determine what you can grow. The second C is your configuration. So it's how tall your panels are, how much space is there between, so how much shading do you have. The third C is related to crop production and selection. So this is the variety of the crop you're growing, the methods that you're using to grow it. These first 3 C's are really the core of what most research has been focused on, and they will really tell you what will physically grow underneath the solar panels. This is again, most of the research has been focused on this. There's still a lot more we need to do to understand the impacts of that shade on crop production, but that's sort of the core of what research has focused on thus far. Our last 2 C's, though, compatibility, which focuses on if it's going to be easy for a farmer to operate their equipment in that facility, as well as collaboration, which is focused on agreements, partnerships, policy, economics, things, business models like that, we have noticed have had a very large impact on the long-term success of these projects. And these are areas that I think really tie into opportunities for smart policies, opportunities to think about what roles both federal and local governments can have to ensure that projects are compatible with farming operations, as well as that there are agreements set in place that are protecting and minimizing risk for landowners, for farmers, solar developers, and all other interested and invested stakeholders in these projects. And so much of our work has been focused on the collaboration and compatibility components beyond specific research. But this sort of framework has been really helpful for us in identifying what are current challenges, as well as what is the state of the research at, because policy oftentimes looks to science and looks to research for insights on how we can most smartly craft an agrivoltaics policy. So next, I'll talk a little bit about the state of agrivoltaics research globally, what we know, and what direction we're moving in. So much of this is stemming from our work on our Inspire data portal, which is the most comprehensive collection of agrivoltaics research that we're aware of. And this is freely available on our website. We update it regularly, and we try to encapsulate all the different research that is currently ongoing on agrivoltaics. We are tracking, agrivoltaics publications by year. You can see over the last 2 years, the number of agrivoltaics publications has skyrocketed. Still, most of the research has been focused on crop production and greenhouses. We also track where the research is coming from, and where the research is performed. Currently, most of the research in the world has been performed in Asia, but Europe and the United States are rapidly increasing their research projects currently. So we categorize agrivoltaics research into 5 main categories. Those include biological sciences, physical sciences, social sciences, technologies, as well as cross-cutting topics. Of those 5 5 broad topics, we have 20 subtopics. So each of those areas, so within biological sciences, for example, we have plant science and wildlife, entomology, livestock, and human health. Within each of those categories, we also have further subcategories. We have a total of about 75 subcategories of scientific research and literature that we've reviewed and cataloged in terms of where have we seen research, what are some of the strengths and weaknesses of that research to date. A little bit about this. So this shows the, I'll show you a little bit more about what we've done with our analysis of the research. So this shows those 5 categories of physical sciences, biological sciences, and technology, and social sciences, and cross-cutting. But we can look at each one of those individually. So we see within physical sciences, we've seen some research on impacts on hydrology, some research on impacts on soil, but most of it's been focused on impacts on the microclimate underneath the panels. We can also look at biological sciences where we've seen plant sciences really dominate the literature. Within technologies, we've seen a number of different novel material sciences, also a lot on different configurations. Within social sciences, we've seen much more focused on economics and market assessments, fewer on things like social acceptance. And then we have a wide array of different cross-cutting technologies. In the slides, I did want to give you a little bit more of an insight into what we can see going forward. So I'm not going to talk through each one of these individually, but you can see that we do have, we go down to that level of 75 different topic areas where we can see the types of research and the types of data that have been produced in all these different areas. So within plant science, we can talk about physiology, we can talk about phenology, we can talk about pests and disease. We've been able to catalog those, the number of studies that have addressed those topics. So those are there for you in the packet. But also importantly, in our analysis of the research, we've also then looked at how are people doing this research. So are they only using a model, or are they doing field work and doing an experimental design? Or are they combining the two, or are they not doing any of those? And so that's also something that we are cataloging and identifying for each of these individual areas, not only what they are studying, what the data suggest, but also what are the methods they are using, and how much confidence can we have in those outcomes, and how applicable they might be when transferred to other regions. So that's a little bit about the state of research. Now I want to talk a little bit more about sort of the future research priorities, where we're going, what we think could be some priorities going forward. So when I think about what is our desired end state for agrivoltaics research, I like to think about having a dart on the map. And this would be a dart you would throw, and it could land anywhere on the map. It could land anywhere in the country of Taiwan, or anywhere in the map in the United States or Japan. And the idea would be that you would be able to say, for that particular plot of land, I would know exactly what my solar configuration would be, what sort of crops I could grow to achieve maximum yield benefits and maximum economic benefits for the farmer as well as for the solar developer. That is our real goal with the types of research that we're doing, but we have a long way to go. There's a lot of fundamental science and a fundamental understanding we need to do in order to get to that place. But we do know that the research that we have, we would want it to be relevant. So we want it to be aligned with current agricultural practices and aligned with solar development economics. We also know that it should be relevant and inform new policies that could be developed. We also know it needs to be responsive to social perspectives and what people, what landowners, farmers think about solar. It should be relevant to them. We also know it should be, the research that we need to do should be comprehensive, and it should not just look at crop yields, but it also needs to look at soil quality. It also needs to look at impacts on water. It also needs to look at impacts on solar energy economics. And we also want this research to be coordinated. So we don't want only the Department of Energy to be doing this on our own. we want to be collaborating with the Ministry of Agriculture, the Ministry of Energy. We want to be working together so we're all collecting the same data and all able to share that data effectively. And we also want to make sure we are looking at technologies that are mature and can be deployed today, but also that we're doing research on innovative and novel technologies that can be deployed in 5 years from now or 10 years from now that potentially could offer multiple benefits and have improved economics. So when we think about what this would look like, we need to be thinking again about what's happening outside of research too. So we need to be thinking very clearly about what is the price of solar energy development. We need to be thinking about what are common solar practices, what is the supply chain for solar technologies look like. Similarly, we also need to be thinking about what's happening in the agricultural sector, what are new practices, what are common practices that are being deployed, what are common crops, what are new innovations that we have in the agricultural sector that we want to make sure we accommodate and we allow for in any agrivoltaics design and research. We also need to be thinking about advanced technologies and social dynamics. We also have sort of a core set of values that we want to make sure when we perform this research that we are doing this in such a way that we're collaborating, we're sharing data, we're taking a multidisciplinary approach to this, not just looking at one topic. And put that all together, this comes up into our research roadmap framework for agrivoltaics going forward. And so this is our sort of the culmination of much of our work on agrivoltaics research priorities, and there are a lot. And so, as I showed, there are 20 topics and then 75 individual areas of research where we know we have gaps. And so there are 75 different sets of research priorities that we have. This is our framework for how we organize and prioritize those research priorities. And so on the left side, you'll see those are those 5 broad categories of technology, physical sciences, biological sciences, social sciences, and cross-cutting elements. That is where many of the specific research priorities that we have will be showcased. But this is all leading towards sort of our end desired outcomes of making sure that the research that we do is relevant to the agricultural industry and supports a strong growing agricultural industry. It also needs to be relevant to the solar industry and support our solar industry, while also making sure that the work we're doing is coordinated among different sectors, and we're using best practices and consistent practices across all of our sites so we can share data. So this is really our research roadmap framework, and I want to go back and talk a little bit, and close out now with our 5 C's, going back to this. So I showed you our 5 C's earlier. We sort of have re-envisioned and reimagined this to be focused on this concentric circle. Much of the research, again, that we'll see is focused on those top 3 C's: climate, crops, and configuration. Those are where the majority of our research, there's a lot of research we need to do to best understand which crops will grow best in which regions. And this is true in the United States, it's true in Germany, in Italy, in Japan. I think it's also true in Taiwan. There's a lot more we can learn and a lot more research that can be done. But that research needs to be done in the context of making sure we are supporting projects that are compatible with farming operations, and that we do have the appropriate agreements and legal frameworks and structures that can ensure long-term success of these projects. So with that, I will also say there's plenty of opportunities for new businesses, new technologies, new approaches to manage agrivoltaic systems, which are unique, and I think that's a really a growing, expanding business area. So with that, I very much appreciate the time that you have given me today. Thank you for listening, and I'm looking forward to the rest of today and to our discussion session this afternoon. Thank you.
谢谢首席分析师精彩的演说。